also want to remind you guys that there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad today. So, like, I just don't want to comment on Khamenei at all. Like, I don't think it's worth even touching that.
All right, so that comment was given after the Ayatollah was killed in Iran. That's Michigan's Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, a progressive, taking a lot of heat over that leaked audio. We had him on yesterday to explain it. Here's a bit about how that went back and forth. You know what Iran has done for almost 50 years. Why did the comment come off that way with your staff, sir?
Look, I'll tell you this. We're in the midst of a war. We don't need to be fighting. It's illegal. It's immoral. It's using our tax dollars to raise our gas prices from a MAGA-backed movement that told us that they would never get us into another foreign entanglement. And here we are. And I just want to remind you that most people in the city of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights are not Arab American. They are white. And they're worried, just like I am. They're saddened by the fact that their tax prices go up, and they are watching their gas prices go up with it, all to fight a war that we shouldn't really be a part of.
Reaction now to review. Noah, good morning to you. I look back at the last 4 presidential elections in a battleground state of Michigan. The average difference was 1.85 percentage points. It's still that really close. And he's betting that the progressive left lane in Michigan wins now with that approach. How do you see it, Noah?
Yeah, that's what he needs in order to win the primary race, which is very tight. It's a 3-way race between Democrats, split just about down the thirds. And he needs to break out. And in order to break out, he needs to appeal to the progressive activist class. That's his contention. And he seems to think that doing so requires him to express or at least share what he believes to be sadness on the part of particularly the activists in Michigan's 12th district, Rashida Tlaib's district, which is where Dearborn, Michigan is. The spin that he gave you on your program yesterday is just positively laughable. What the Washington Free Beacon reported subsequent in those comments was that he was going to pivot to the Epstein files because, this is just a distraction of the Epstein files, right? Because all the progressives know that that's gracing the headlines. I don't know what world they live in where that is top of mind for Americans, much less progressive activist voters. But that's where he landed on. And now he's pivoting to, well, they just really don't like regime change wars, because everybody can remember the outpouring of enthusiasm or hostility, rather, to the Venezuela raid that nabbed Nicolas Maduro, right? No, you can't. And maybe the constituents are frustrated with America's intervention abroad broadly. Maybe they are. Or maybe this candidate just is. And he's projecting his own hostilities and frustrations onto these voters. I think what you saw was an expression of Saeed's hostility.
I believe he believes what he was saying. I guess the argument I'm making is that I don't know if he can win with that sort of approach in Michigan. Meanwhile, in California, you got a really interesting primary shaping up there, okay? There are at least 10 candidates. Most of them are Democrats. But apparently they're getting a bit uneasy about the outcome. Here's what a Democratic strategist is saying about the Golden State. He's saying, we know there's risk ahead, a 15% chance of calamity. It's not a 15% chance of stubbing your toe. It's a 15% chance of losing the governorship, losing the down ballot races. That's according to Paul Mitchell, who's a strategist looking at that state. Steve Hilton's fighting for on the Republican side. How do you see this today? Could it go to the red team?
There's a real possibility that this blanket primary, in which all candidates compete for these nominations, end up nominating 2 Republicans because the Democratic vote is so broken up over all those candidates you see there. This is the problem with blanket primaries, which were supposed to be an antidote to partisan primary politics. But if you have a sought-after race in a dark blue state, you can have eventualities in which unrepresentative candidates, like 2 Republicans vying for the California governorship, end up emerging at the top of the ticket. It would be very fun to watch from my perspective. But it would produce results that are unrepresentative of what California voters typically want. And that's part of the problem with introducing ever more democracy into the primary process. The parties used to be controlling their own destinies. They used to be able to select candidates that were reflective of their ideological proclivities and their policy positions. And they handed ever more control to voters. And this is what you get. You get voters that may not necessarily reflect the desires of the parties. Democracy used to happen outside the parties, not inside them. Increasingly, we see these results as you introduce ever more majoritarianism into the process.
Okay, we'll see where it goes. Top 2 advance. It would be interesting. And maybe like the thing to watch, maybe, in that election. Thank you, Noah. Nice to have you back on our program. Thanks for coming on.